Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in today. I'm Maya and I'm a student, female entrepreneur from New York. I'm going to be speaking with you guys today about e-commerce and how to resell different products on like eBay and Amazon. So I brought in one of my good colleagues, Ryan Zieser, to speak with me. I met him in Puerto Rico working on my company where we focus on branding products and kind of private labeling products on the e-commerce marketplaces. So when I spoke to him and he was doing more of reselling and flipping, I just thought it was really interesting. So we're gonna go through a few questions and yeah, so excited to talk to you guys about this today. I think when I first met you, one of the most interesting things that when just talking with you casually about what you were doing is like how you got into specifically reselling products, because like my whole life I've always bought products, kind of rebranded them, and then sold them with like a more of a marketing base. So I hadn't really touched that piece of e-commerce. So I was curious what got you into it, like the first things you were reselling, stuff like that.
So actually I got into it when I was like 13, 14. I was at that time working a nice $9 an hour job in retail at my local ski shop. And one of my buddies brought me to a sneaker convention in New York City where there's a lot of like buying, selling, trading, swapping of shoes. And I think I went with like, $100 in my pocket and walked out like $80 profit on the day, which was like 10 hours of work at my job. So I was like, wow, this is a pretty good market to get into. And I started small, just buying stuff online, selling it on eBay or through local Facebook group pages and stuff like that. And then it kind of just grew from there. I was fortunate enough kind of a year or two later to get a really rare pair of shoes that sold for like 25x, something like that. And I kind of used that as seed money to launch it into more of a business. Through college, I continued to do it on the side while I was attending school. And then ultimately it turned into a real retail business in malls up and down the eastern seaboard. We had about 9 locations. It was a kiosk with the shoes around it for sale, and then a game where people could win them for $5, and then like the accessory products like cleaning and stuff like that. But the crux of it was always leveraging the online purchasing and then utilizing local connections to sell it for a higher margin. So that was really where it all started. So
you said you got taken to a convention. Mm-hmm. I've never even heard of a sneaker convention. So what is, like, if you could just talk a little bit more about like how did you go in with $100?
Yeah, I mean,
come out with $80.
For sure. So I had $100 just saved from working and whatever, and I think I went planning to just buy myself a pair of shoes. Mm-hmm. And I bought something, didn't really like, I sold them for like $20 profit, and I did that a few more times throughout the day. So you can imagine these conventions as like a gym full of booths, and then people just walking around the booths, tons of shoes in hand, whether people are walking around with 2 or 3 pairs or someone sitting at a booth with like 150, 200 pairs. The size of the reseller really varied there, but it kind of showed me, that this could be something real. So that's kind of what that is, yeah. So nowadays, it's a lot more mainstream, and a bunch of these Discord and Slack groups have popped up where for $50 a month, they'll give you all the information you need to get started, and then they'll even monitor products online for when they're in stock so that you can purchase them and stuff like that. So it's a lot easier nowadays to get into than it was, but with that also, are some negatives. For example, the seller side of the market is a lot more saturated than it was. So margins from when I first started to now are a lot less. So you really want to be doing high volume. On the other hand, it's a lot easier to purchase because retailers have seen the demand for the shoes, have increased quantities, and a lot more software for purchasing products is widely available. So
let's focus on, I guess, the digital aspect of it rather than the retail side, just because we see, a transformation shift to digital.
Absolutely.
What would you say like your top platform is right now that you're selling online?
So for years it was eBay. In recent years, 2 marketplaces specifically for sneakers have popped up. One would be called StockX, and the other one's GOAT. So these are nice because they're apps on your phone, and then desktop applications where the shoes listings are already built. All you have to do is go in, select the size you have, select your price, and it's instantly listed for millions of people to see. Constantly dynamically changing prices, so someone can lower their ask lower than yours,
right.
And only the lowest price gets listed. Once that gets bought, the next one gets listed.
Okay.
And then people can place bids as well if you want to instantly cash out. Having a tool where you could sell on all 3 marketplaces and manage that inventory would definitely be useful. So what you guys do is pretty cool. I think there isn't really something for that on the sneaker side. Granted, it's a little bit more complicated, but yeah, I mean, those 3 marketplaces are really the main spot. And then if you have local connections, you can usually get a pretty high margin as well.
With the dynamic pricing piece, is that kind of, because I know on Amazon with when we sell, it's similar with the buy box. You want to have the lowest price or you're not even going to get the buy box. So Valet Seller has a few features that can help you like price change and work with the prices that are at buy box. Do you see softwares out there specifically for Houzz and StockX and Goat that are going to, if they see that the #1 seller for whatever Yeezy #1, I don't know anything about shoes, is like whatever price, can you drop it by like a penny, or do you not really see that?
So they do dollar increments on these platforms, and it's really up to you. I mean, there's maybe one real third-party software that will connect to all the marketplaces, and you can control it all from one spot. Otherwise, you have to go in through your phone and manually do everything. You'll get a notification. But it's also up to you. If you're aware of market prices and how they'll change over time, you can kind of set it at a price you're comfortable with selling at. And if it takes a month to sell, you're okay with that because it's a higher margin. So it's really up to you. So you see some people who, constantly fighting to have the lowest price because they want to sell as fast as possible. You see other people that sit on shoes for 6 months, a year, 2 years because they know it's going to go up over time and they got a limited amount and want to maximize profits on that.
Right, yeah. So my next question was going to be, just kind of the process of, finding the shoes that you should be buying to resell for, the best margin, and then how that whole thing kind of works, because I know a little bit about releases but not much about like actually what companies are doing them. Is it like something where I can buy something and a year later it'll sell for 2x, or because I feel like there might be a disconnect with the money you have available to invest in inventory to the day that it actually sells. With a lot of these high margin products, sometimes I feel like that's an issue for new sellers to have the capital to invest.
Yeah.
So is there like a process that you follow, maybe a budget you set for yourself in a given month, or you kind of just go all in?
So really there's 2 ways to do it. You can listen to advice from some of these groups, which for a new seller I would absolutely recommend. Otherwise, if you have some background knowledge and you want to go on the marketplaces yourself and look at bids, look at asking prices and kind of compare that and look at volume, then you can kind of make a judgment for yourself. So I do a combination of the 2. Certain models I know are typically follow certain trends, so those I'll sit on, where others I might be less certain, or I know that I gotta sell quickly. So it depends, and definitely managing capital is one of the hardest parts about it, because if you get stuck with a bunch of shoes that you can't sell and they happen to have no return policy, then it can hurt you in future releases. So you really want to be cognizant of that, especially if you have minimal capital.
And then just one other thing on that response. So if you were to like manually go on eBay, try to find a shoe or sneaker or some other item that's selling, do you do that fully manually, or would you use like a scraping software tool? Because I know there's a lot out there specifically for eBay, volume, search keywords, all of that data that you can see, or does that not apply as much because it's like individual pairs that are going up for sale versus like a common search word?
So I think eBay is actually of the 3 marketplaces the worst to look for sales data, just because the other 2 marketplaces are kind of intentionally made to show you that data, whereas eBay is more just like a buy-sell platform, not exactly just focused on sneakers. So there are apps that kind of aggregate the 3 marketplaces, and you can just check prices. You can't control like your listings. So using those is nice sometimes just to get an overall grasp on the market. Or if you just go onto the StockX app, it's essentially, like the name says, a stock marketplace for shoes. So you'll see graphs of the data, you'll see the highest bid in each side, you'll see the lowest asking price in each size, and you can kind of compare from there. Yeah.
Awesome. That's really helpful.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely changed the game, and I think they're over $1 billion in valuation now, so that kind of...
When you place these orders on the various websites that you're going to get the sneakers from or whatever
Yeah.
other products, you ship them, I know, to this address, but do you have, has that always worked for you, or did you ever need, more or less space? You kind of did it as how much inventory you had in, and then you send them out yourself, you ship them out yourself?
So it depends. One of the tough parts about sneakers is that websites will try and limit you in how many pairs you can buy.
Right.
So there's 2 ways to combat that. The first is software, which buys it for you, also known as bots. It's the only way, not the only way, it's the main way you can get inventory these days.
Right.
There's just so many out there that if you don't have one, you're at a severe disadvantage. If sometimes you need multiple addresses. Other times there's ways to kind of change the way your address looks in order to get multiple pairs shipped to it. So that's kind of depends on which site you're buying from. And then, for most people, I think they handle logistics themselves. For the top, maybe 5-10%, they'll have people handle it for them. I know me, I'm remote half the year in Puerto Rico. So during that time, I'm lucky enough to have my family help me out with logistics. But when I'm around, I do it myself just to save on costs. And
so if someone was like, tomorrow I'm going to put down $5,000 on this, I want to make money from buying and selling products, I want it to be relatively low work, would you recommend step 1, make a bot?
So I wouldn't recommend just jumping in and building a bot.
Right.
To build a bot, you either need to have very advanced coding skills or spend a lot of money on development, and it's going to take you a minimum of 6 months, probably longer, to build the bot. So the best thing you can do is, honestly, the Twitter world is a pretty strong place in the sneaker community. So you can go through there, you can look at the success of different bots and different Discord groups that give info. Choose a group that you think is right for you. And then I would do some research on the bots, because the bots themselves are not cheap. They can range from a few $100s to a few $1,000s. So look at the success of the bots and what it takes to run them. Choose one that you think fits what you're trying to do. And then, purchase the bot, save some money for inventory, of course. And that's kind of the starting place, is a group, a bot, and capital for investment.
Right. Do you see, right now, specific trends in the resale market other than sneakers?
Absolutely.
Various products that you either have gotten into and have seen success with, or haven't gotten into and think that would be a good thing to recommend to anyone watching this, or something you're about to get into that you don't mind sharing?
For sure. So a lot of these Discord groups have evolved from just sneakers to reselling in general. Right. And like I said, the sneaker market has kind of become super saturated, and so it can be hard to get pairs, or the margins might not be as good sometimes. So resellers like me have had to adjust. So you see industries like sports cards. This summer, swimming pools were highly reselling, collectibles, art. So there's a whole variety of products that resell. And if you get in a good group, or if you really just put in the work, you can find a lot of products that resell besides sneakers that are just as profitable, if not more. So that's definitely something I would recommend, because putting all your eggs in one basket is never a good thing.
Right. Yeah. Do you see that these trends with reselling, all the things you just listed off, stay more consistent than general consumer trends? So when I talk to you about how COVID's affecting Amazon sales and different, we see, I feel with Valet Seller, we see a lot of ups and downs in the grocery market, or in workout categories. We just saw a spike because of COVID. Do you think that the reselling market might be considered more consistent? When you look at sneakers, they're always going to sell a little bit higher profit margin than some other products that might be more competitive.
Yeah, I would say, like all markets, the reselling market's highly cyclical. So there are years where resale is not as good. There are times when certain products are reselling a lot, like the sports cards thing. I mean, though it's been around for a long time, it's really became mainstream this year. a lot of consumer goods that are reselling now weren't until COVID hit, just because supply chain shortages and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't think it's any more consistent. If anything, it might be less consistent. Although if you're in multiple industries, it makes it easier because you kind of swap between what's doing well at that time. But the margins can be really good. For example, I feel like in general consumer goods that or private labels, your typical margins are between 30 and 50%. Tell me if I'm wrong, but where in shoes or cards and stuff like that, it could be hundreds of percent. It's just you don't have as good of a control on your supply chain, where most people, if you're selling like a private label candle or something like that, you can sell hundreds of thousands if you need to. Whereas with shoes, if a release doesn't go well, you have no inventory. So that's kind of the downfall of it, which a lot of people struggle with, which is why bots were formed to begin with.
Yeah, because I feel like a misconception that I've always thought is like between like collectibles, art, sports cards, all these things that you think of with higher margins, less or more demand and less actual supply. I just think like you get one, hold on to it for 200 years and then it'll sell for more. But that's not the case. The way to go. Yeah.
No, especially like I said, controlling your capital is super important. So sometimes it's not worth those extra margins to hold on that long, and you're going to want to control that and really stay in tune with the market to see what's selling and when's the right time to sell, just like anything. So.
One question to wrap up, or I guess just kind of like anyone who's watching this, would you have any recommendations or advice to give them, and maybe like a inspiring fact about something that's like, wow, that's sick that you made, like you said 25x earlier, that might be like your top multiple on a product, or if there was like something that stood out to you in your last X amount of years of reselling products, something that people can kind of hold on to and be excited about, like set a goal for themselves, something like that.
Yeah, I would just say that staying organized and staying committed is important. Just being diligent, any day you can get lucky. Like that day I got that pair of shoes, I was 16, and I made more money than I'd ever made in my life in one day, and that can happen to anyone. And and the people you know and meet are really important as well. Me taking it from something I did on the side and turning it into a legit business was because of a connection I had made years prior with someone I did a lot of deals with and had treated right. And then one day he brought me an opportunity that really took things to the next level. So I think that the people and you deal with are super important to your success. So I would definitely say value those relationships, value those connections, and you never know what's going to happen. So.
All right, so we just grabbed some of Ryan's top sellers. Would you call them?
Yeah, top sellers.
To just
for sure.
Go through.
Yeah, so I mean, right here, pair of Yeezys. This is the main shoe that everyone thinks of when you're selling sneakers. It's definitely the most in demand and easy to sell. So this one here is the Yeshaya model. Always some interesting names for Yeezys. But this one retailed at $220. I think current resale is about $350. Yeezy releases are nice because they're so highly in demand. They release a ton of pairs, but they still always seem to sell for above retail in the right sizes. Believe it or not, actually, girl sizes sell for the highest margin in Yeezys, more so than men's. Which is interesting because most people think of sneaker collecting as a male-dominated industry, but in some shoes and some sizes, Yeezys for example, the women sell it better. So yeah, I mean, there's probably one Yeezy release a month, and if you're a really good reseller, it can kind of make your month. So these are always the ones people ask me about, and when I was in school, everyone was always asking if I could get them Yeezys. Don't sell Yeezys for less than what they're worth. That's all I'm saying. Don't hook up a girl with Yeezys. It's not worth it.
With sneakers, the sizing. So will the Yeezy releases, they'll release, let's just say for ease, they release 100 pairs, and you're looking at sizes. What would it be for men?
Men's sizes are 7.5 to 18 or whatever. Really, typically 7.5 to 14, 13 or 14.
And then women's is like 3 to.
Women's are usually 4 to 7.
4 to 7.
Yep.
And yeah, because I know with jewelry that we sell sizes of like rings, it's huge that you get the main 3 sizes. Otherwise,
Right.
you're just going to be off on inventory and kind of mess up your numbers.
So that's the hard thing, because it can be really hard or capital intensive to carry a pair in every single size.
Right.
So if you are trying to, carry every size for your store, you're really going to need to work to make sure you get everything. That's why kind of people will just take whatever size they can get and sell it online. That way they don't have to have buyers lined up. Or the other way around is, you have buyers lined up, you know their size, and you only target those sizes.
Right.
So yeah, sizing's super important. There's been times where I've accidentally purchased a pair of shoes in like size 15 and it takes me a year to sell them, stuff like that. The nice thing about shoes is a lot of times you can return them, but not always. So sizing is definitely crucial.
Yeah, they're nice shoes. I would take a pair.
Maybe we can hook you up.
Do you, so say you buy, like just based on demand, if you buy 30 of this shoe, do you think you could sell it in what kind of time frame?
I could sell them all same day if I wanted to. Yeezys are, like I said, the easiest shoe to move, as liquid as it gets. But they also, because of that, the market dries up really quickly, and you'll see that typically in 3 to 6 months, the Yeezys go up. So I think on release day, these were going for like between $280 and $320. And now they go between $300 and $400.
Because everyone who can't get them from the release on that day just moves over to eBay,
And
says
buys.
I'll take it for 60
Right,
more.
if you really want
But if
it.
you wait and it's a popular trending one, they only released, whatever, 500 or whatever many, so you can wait and hold them.
Yeah, and there's only so many new shoes. Once it gets worn, it's taken out of the new shoe market. So yeah, that's why sitting on stuff can be really profitable at times, but other times, if the hype goes away, you can end up losing out on profit. So.
Gotcha. All right, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Ryan, for speaking with me and answering these questions.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a blast.
And thanks you guys for tuning in.